Welcome back to a brand new video of the Targeted Individual Program, Targeted Individual Experience. There's a couple things that I want to talk about before I get into the video. And this is going to be a 3-part video, okay? Because a couple things that I need to address so that people can, begin to think, right? Begin to think instead of just believing. But I want to start off by uploaded videos earlier today and tonight in terms of what happened last night, I should say, Saturday, January 11th. My way to the doctor. And then I want to talk about when I was in the doctor's office, what was going on. So, got into the doctor's office, and again, they love to do these psyops using silent sound, police in the background. They use the doctor's assistants, who, like I said, every time I go there, except for yesterday, all of a sudden, right, that I'm always the last person to leave. Okay? And though I still left late, but there were people that came in after me that went before me. And I'm looking at the time and I'm seeing, it's going to 12 o'clock. There were, I think, maybe 2 or 3 people left besides me. I was in one of the rooms, the doctor's room. And, I realized that, hey, she was letting people go in front of me. So I did the video, and immediately, because, they had called me. I was in one of the office for about a good half an hour right before I did the video. I was just observing, with the hand signals and stuff like that, the palm fixation drill, that if I talk about what they were doing, then again, it's, they're going to use the cops and all this stuff, right? Again, all of those sort of coercive threats. All right. And again, to try to elicit the fight or flight, because they want to see if it's going to stay or leave, that sort of thing. This is what they've always done, constantly do this, right? And again, it's to manipulate you psychologically, so that when you exhibit that fight or flight phenomenon, they can say, well, we didn't do anything. It's you. You made that decision, and you're using psychological manipulation. You're using technology, silent sound, and you're using noise, particularly the police, using their sirens as a psychological coercive threat. Okay. So this is what they were doing, right? And so after I did the video, it was a short video. Within 2 minutes, she came back and she was like, "The doctor's going to see you now." And then start shaking the change in her pocket. Right? So this is what they'll do. Again, engage in that sort of behavior, these sort of psychological attacks. If I do a video and I expose it, then the threat of financial ruin, have my disability taken away. It is constant, right? It is constant, the constant threat, right? But this is what the state does. This is what the white supremacist does, because they are in control of the state, right? They are in control of the predator departments, right? And they have waged war on black people, particularly black men. And this is something that we have to understand, right? Now, I'm speaking both as a targeted individual and as a black man. So I can speak on both. Okay? And again, so as I left, right, like I said, I was talking at Mr. Busky, we was talking about God and the Bible and all this stuff, which again, I'm going to show you guys how these so-called Christians don't really believe and don't really read the Bible. Now, they can quote scriptures because, they regurgitate the BS since they were younger. And it's always the same thing. So what is, we talk about repetition, right? Repetition is what? It's programming. When you are repeating things, like let's say you study for an exam, you're programming yourself to study for an exam and to know what's on the exam, right? You keep studying over and over, repetition. You're conditioning your mind. so that when you sit down to take that test, you will have that information and hopefully retain that information, right? So programming is something that we also do to ourselves, right? But we are also programmed in ways in which most of us refuse to realize because we're ignorant to the fact, right? And also because, again, particularly within black people and black community, black people are the most religious people in America and around the world, right? And they're not practicing their own religion. They don't even want to know about their own religion, right? But they're practicing either Christianity or Islam, right? Both of these religions were meant to subjugate, to oppress, and to enslave us, our ancestors, I should say. And we're still enslaved. We may not have the physical bondage, but we're enslaved in another way. We're enslaved through consumerism. We're enslaved through lies in terms of education system, how it lies to us, right? We are enslaved economically. Okay, like I said, anybody can go do a simple Google, right? The largest transfer of wealth going to white people. And in the year 2054, 53, black people will have zero wealth. There's nothing that I'm predicting. I'm not they'll say, oh, you're a prophet. And you see, back in those times, people who they call prophets were people who speak the truth. But people who knew that things were going to happen based on a set of criterias in which things were happening. Just like today, we can predict, weather patterns. We can predict every decade or 2 decades so there's going to be a war because there's a history to show it. So you can make an accurate prediction. Okay, and every once in a while, based on those criteria, that prediction may not come true. But for the most part, if you're 80% of the time correct in predicting certain things, you would be considered a prophet, right? Again, the reinterpretation of certain things into the concept of religion and using words and people who they will call prophets and such leaders, I should say, right? And changing the meaning of these things, of the words, to mean something else. So it is important that we understand the etymology of words, right? Because the words don't change, the meaning does, right? You can attach a different meaning to one word, okay? So you need to understand these things, right? So anyhow, then again, the use of nudging, setting things up in a certain manner, which I'm going to talk about. I'm going to show you guys how. And again, this is perfectly fine because those who are in control of creating the mindset within the people of society, right, which is our government, they hire public relation firms. And those public relation firms are companies that have psychiatrists and psychologists, right, who come up with ways to manipulate you and I without us even knowing it. They can shape your thinking. They can shape your belief system in however way they see fit, but you don't recognize it, right? So it is perfectly, in certain instances, it is perfectly legal for governments to mind control the society if it's going to benefit and have positive outcome for those within the society. But that's not what's happening here with SSTIs. And that's not what's happening within this society. In American society, we have become a consumerism society, and that is because those within the government have sold themselves to corporations. This is why they can destroy the American job market and the public not be upset about it. Right? This is why they use the police as an intimidating force so that you can no longer protest or you cannot voice your opinion of the crime that they committed and they continue to commit. and they're developing new ways in which to have us silence ourselves. Okay, so it's no longer will it be them silencing us. It will be in a way in which they condition us to silence ourselves. They're still doing it, but they're like the third party, right? Whereas they're creating things to manipulate you and I, so that when things happen, there will be no more protesting. All right, that we will choose, and not by our choice, but we will choose to be self-isolating. Okay, so the elites have a plan; they have an agenda, and like I said, and it's whenever they want to practice these things, test these things out, they do it in the black community and against targeted individuals. Okay, so we must understand these things. All right. Okay, so I'm going to do the return of the segment, Corrupt Cops USA, which I the past two videos I didn't brought on the segment, but it needs to be, because this is important, and I want to say before it's it gets to Monday, that happy birthday to Dr. Khalid Muhammad. All right, and before anybody who watched this video get their what's the word here? They're self in a fickle over me saying happy birthday, Dr. Khalid Muhammad. Dr. Khalid Muhammad was a black man who loved black people, who was tired of seeing black people continue to be oppressed, to be trampled at the hands of the predator departments across America, and speaking up about it. And this is what white America don't want black men in particular to speak out against the injustices, the abuse of black people. They don't want it. This is why they are destroying black leaders. Right? And because they are in a position of power, they have the resources, right, to do whatever they want to do. They do it. They do it with no accountability. Right? So understand that these people don't want to be held accountable for anything. All right? Now, here's a video. I'm not going to show all of the video, but it's where a cop shoots a black man in the back of the neck. He was laying down on the ground, and he shoots him in the back of the neck. Okay? I mean, like I said, these things still happen. But Negropeans, right? The Negropeans, those in the churches, they are so afraid, right? Because, they're getting that government money now, right? So they don't want to lose that money. So the black church has sold themselves out. They become the prostitutes of the government, right? These pastors, as long as they're getting money from the government, they're going to remain silent on all sorts of social issues, particularly social issues that when it comes to that negatively affect black men and black people and black women also, right? So black people in general. Okay. All right. Yes, and I said okay. Yeah, original king. Yes. Because they were, I call my brothers kings, whenever I see, any of my brothers on the street, when I recognized them, I said, how you doing, king? And I have no problem calling a black man that looks like me king. Okay? I have no problem calling a black woman that looks like me queen. All right? Now, it doesn't, just because I use the word king and queen doesn't mean that you're a good king and queen. But you are a reflection of who I am, what I look like. So you're a king and you're a queen. Right? We both have the feminine and masculine aspect, and the men have more of the masculine aspect, and the women have more of the feminine aspect. Right? So you are a king and a queen. Black men and black women. And see yourself as such. But understand our reality. Right? And don't let others try to manipulate you into being ignorant and arrogant about what you see in front of you. Don't let them try to manipulate you to ignoring the continued oppression and the continued racism by this racist society and this racist system. All right? And this is not hate. I'm speaking the truth. I'm not saying going out there and kill this and kill this person, this and that. I'm not saying that. I'm just speaking the truth. And the more they fight against me from speaking the truth, is the more that they show others that, yeah, there's something that he is saying that they don't want him to say. All right? So it must be true. And he's not just saying it, he's showing us. All right, like I said, I don't want you to believe, I want you to know. Okay? All right.
Get back! Get back! 1915, I was just involved in shooting Nelson Griggs.
Emergency paramedics arrived at the scene and, after administering resuscitation techniques, declared that Mr. Leoa had passed away. Autopsy reports indicate that Mr. Leah died from a gunshot wound to the back of his head. Civil rights attorney Ben Crump released a statement after the videos were made public. Patrick Leah immigrated to the United States from the Democratic...
I mean, this reminds me of, what's his name? The black man who died at the hands of the police department, who shot at him 47 times. Abner Louima. I think, is that his name? Abner Louima? No, I might be wrong. But anyway, there was a black man in New York who, they shot him. They shot him. And, you know, these cops walk free. These predators walk free. But we see this happen over and over all across America. Right? And today, particularly since the beginning of 2024, after they've taken down the Black Lives Matter movement, and I said they've taken on the Black Lives Matter movement because that's exactly what they did, COINTELPRO. Right? And many people don't understand this. And also many people don't understand how they're using black women, how they are weaponizing black women against us, particularly black men. But also how they weaponize us black men against black women. You know, I made a post on Facebook, right? And this person says, and again, you know, we're not a scientific people. I'm talking about black people, right? For the most part. We're not a scientific people. We're like I said, we're people who just want to believe instead of knowing. Right? So a person made this is somebody shared this, right? And it says, just because she's pregnant doesn't mean she had sex. Okay? Stop judging people. And the person who shared it said something about grape and all this stuff and such, right? And I stated based on what he wrote. 'Cause I mean, of course, I know it's you know, it can be artificial insemination, but which virgin, a woman who's a virgin, you know, that is going to have artificial insemination. It doesn't matter if she's a lesbian because she's still having sex. Okay. Whether she's using a toy, using fingers, tongues, whatever, you know, they're still having sex. Right? So the notion that they're not having sex, that's a damn lie. Okay? Now, yeah, artificial insemination, they can do that, right? Fertility clinics, all that stuff. But that is how they want this society to move in. Because I'll tell you what, fertility clinic will probably begin to get cheaper and cheaper, right? Because you start to hear women talk about they don't, particularly black women that are not started, but they've been doing this for the past 2 decades, that they don't need a man. All right. Many black women who are not attractive, right, have deluded themselves into thinking that they're 10. Okay. And if we don't treat them as men as 10s, you know, they'll go scorch earth on us. Right. So a lot of it is a lot of our women are being conditioned with this ultra egotistical mindset, and then they want us to indulge in their delusions. So again, understanding where the mindset comes from, understanding how we are psychologically manipulated. Okay. But I say this just to say how, again, another weaponization. We as black men, we are under the system, we as black people, we are under the system of white supremacists. Don't ever forget that. Just because you got a job and you might have a house, or you're driving a nice car, what have you, that doesn't mean that you're not living under the system of white supremacy. Because with that nice house, that nice car, the nice clothes you have on, you know that when a white police officer stops you or pull you over, right, there's a high chance that you might lose your life. There's a high chance that you might go to jail. There's a high chance that you might be assaulted, framed, right? But what you see has been happening over the past, and I've noticed over the past decade, is that we tend to not have these things in our forefront until we see something like this. Until we see how a young black man can be killed just for a traffic violation, right? Which he should have been given a ticket, tow his car, or what have you. But to take his life. And this is the mindset of these police officers. They're judge, jury, and executioner. And a lot of times, a lot of them are the ones who set things in motion. They're the ones who are manipulating situations. They're the ones who are, instead of de-escalating, but they're escalating the situation because they want a certain outcome to happen. And the minute you as a black man, you get nervous, you know, or you stand up for your rights, they're going to put you down. That is their mindset. That we cannot, they don't want us to stand up for our rights. This is why, like I said, my targeting, whenever I talk about human rights and civil rights, all that stuff, they use the sirens. Like I have no rights. I have rights. You may try to dehumanize me, but I'm a human being. Because if you dehumanize me, I'm going to dehumanize you. Okay? If you're spreading false propaganda and lies, I'm going to do the same thing to you. All right? I'm going to treat you how you treat me. I'm going to look at you the way you look at me. If you look at me with hatred and anger, I'm going to look at you with hatred and anger. If you look at me with love and understanding, I'm looking at you with love and understanding. If you come at me with violence, I'm going to come at you with violence. It's as simple as that. So, what it says here is that this young man, all right, lost his life. How do you shoot somebody in the back of the head? Okay, you're a police officer. All right, but you have to understand a lot of these police officers, they're serial killers. They're predators of black men and black people. These are the white supremacists that make up the majority of the predator department in the U.S. And I have no problem saying that because that's the truth. You see, a lot of us, because we live in our own bubble, we think that, this is just our section of the life that we're living in, and there isn't a bigger, state out there or a world out there. We tend to look at things based off our adult experience and then want to go off of that. No, you can't do that. You're just a small part of a bigger engine. Right? We all are cogs in the engine that keeps the engine running. Now, some cogs are cleaner because they're being taken care of more so than others. But eventually, when you ignore the cog, you ignore certain cogs, guess what? The engine stops running. Right? The engine stops running. As I said the word ignore, I use the right? Again, trying to say, oh, nobody gonna listen to your videos, people gonna ignore you. That's fine. I'm gonna keep speaking my truth. Right? With all the power that you have, all the money, resources that you have, you couldn't get to ultimately do what you were planning to do. And so, like I said, for the good people out there who understand and know what's going on, ReusTI, thank you. Not just myself, but I'm sure I'm speaking for other TIs too. All right, those who are willing to listen, to understand, to get to the bottom of this, we thank you. All right, so you are never going to make me feel as if no one is listening to what I'm saying. All right, because the one thing they don't want, particularly me as a black man and as black men, is that they don't want us to listen to each other, particularly our women. That's why you see some women will show videos like this and will applaud it. They will literally applaud it. Okay? And I keep saying, if you are a black woman, you're raising a black son, right? You have to hope that he doesn't become a victim at the hands of these racist cops, including the ones that look like him. Okay?
Republic of the Congo to pursue the American dream and provide a better and safer life for himself and his family. Instead, he was met with a fatal bullet to the back of his head delivered by an officer of the Grand Rapids Police Department. The video clearly shows that this was an unnecessary, excessive, and deadly use of force against an unarmed black man who was confused by the encounter and terrified for his life. It should be noted that Patrick never used violence against this officer, even though the officer acted violently towards him multiple times during what was a minor traffic stop. We demand that the officer responsible for Patrick's death not only be dismissed for his excessive and deadly use of force, but also be arrested and prosecuted for the violent killing of Patrick Lea. Officer Christopher Schur was terminated from his position and now faces 1 count of second-degree murder.
Okay. Now, again, the only reason why you see some of these police officers will be arrested and charged is when they put those videos up at the forefront. And they do that so that you will not think about the other 500 murders that the police, the Predator Department committed against black people. Right? So now you're just focusing on this one right here. So they know how to manipulate us. They know how to take our minds and our eyes off of the bigger picture, right? And keep it on this one little thing. As I said, as we as TIs, we are the distraction for those in the society. Okay? They can get them to target us, but meanwhile, they're ignoring, right, what it is that's being done. How their rights are being violated also. They themselves have no privacy, even though they invade your privacy, right? And I'm talking about not on a personal level, right, but on a national level. How the people that you interact with, how their privacy is being violated, right? How they are being attacked also. So they don't think about that. They just think about, attacking you as a TI, and they feel because you're one individual, there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, and no one would believe you, right? So if 100 people are attacking you, and you go to the cops and say, "Hey, I'm being attacked," 100 people are attacking you. Those 100 people come and say, "You know what? He's lying or she's lying or whatever." The cops are going to believe the 100 people. They're not going to believe you. See, they understand that. This is why they do what they do. This is why they use certain types of people. This is why they use them in a certain manner. Because, you know, these criminals are embedded within law enforcement. Okay? And you can't get rid of them. You can get rid of some of them, but they're going to be replaced by the same type of criminals. All right. So again, I'm glad that this cop is fired and charged with second-degree murder. Because again, what should have just been a routine traffic incident? And we see this all the time, where you see police officers, particularly white police officers, using traffic stops, bogus traffic stops, about the license plate doesn't match the car, and we've seen that so many times. We've seen that with a state's attorney, right, in Florida, being pulled over by cops because they said that her license plate didn't come back, and she was like, "That's impossible." She's driving her official police vehicle, right? But because she's black, they're still, stopping her over bogus traffic stops. Okay, this is the predator department across America. And I say that not to disparage the cops, because I'm just calling them out for who they are. And again, not all of them, but it is the vast majority of them. All right? So as I said, today is Dr. Khalid Muhammad's birthday, and I want to share just a small clip of his brilliance and his understanding of the reality. And I want you to look at the ignorance of the white audience, including the host, Phil Donahue. And I like Phil Donahue, right? But, they tend to ignore the fact that what black people face in this country in the past and still continue to face today, because they put the Sambos and Sambinas out front and use them as some sort of model, but they're not a model to follow by. They're shrills. They're being used. And they're selling themselves to be on television to get a little bit of money. It's only temporary, because eventually they get rid of them. Right? This is their playbook. All right? So anyway, this is fair use. Okay?
You would want to say what to her?
I don't have
hold on a second. Let's go
with
back
one
here.
of your brothers, Cheney, buried in a shallow grave in the South in the middle of the Civil Rights Movement, because this black man was seen with two white Jews down there causing trouble, trying to promote the civil liberties of your people. Two Jews found in a shallow grave. I happen to have met the mother of one of these. Very brave people.
I always find it interesting that they will always bring up about how white people march in the civil rights movement. We know that. We get that. And we appreciate those white people. We celebrate them. Okay? But you will never hear black people say, well, there were black people, black men, who went to Germany to free the Jews, who went to Italy to free the Jews, who was in Austria to free the Jews, who died on the battlefield. Okay? We don't say those things because it is obvious to us that, that's the history. So we don't use it as a tool and weaponize it, but this is what they do. This is what they do, and they will always come. And like I said, from now on, black people, we need to start calling them out on it. Call them out on it. Okay? That's two Jewish people. Go and see how many black men and women died in World War II. Fighting to free the Jews.
And when she sees this, we can only speculate what must go on in her heart. You would want to say what to her?
It's interesting. I'm not going to post this, but when you look at those who own apartment buildings in New York, particularly in the five boroughs, the vast majority are Jewish owned, and you have a lot of these Jewish owned apartment buildings in which predominantly black people live in. They're decrepit. They're still using lead paint, right? They're infested with rats. Okay. And again, you can do a simple Google search, right? The slumlords of New York. And this goes back to the 80s, right? But we don't call them out on that. Why is that? Because we are conditioned not to. Meanwhile, they can make all kind of disparaging remarks about us. Why? Because they know what they've done. They know how they've manipulated us. They know how they have dumbed us down. They know the type of warfare they've engaged within us. Cognitive warfare. Right? So this is, like I said, you know, if more black men would have the mindset of a Louis Farrakhan, of a Dr. Khalid Muhammad, of a Malcolm X, right? Of a Patrice Lumumba, as a Thomas Sankara, right? As a Ibrahim Traoré. A revolutionary mindset to get black people in line so that black people can improve their condition living under this system of white supremacy. But that will never happen because they won't allow it. And so they have to make us into children in adult bodies. And we blaming each other. Oh, you such a child, this and this is a child. Again, because we don't understand what it is that they're doing to us. Cognitive warfare, neurocognitive warfare. How is it that when black children are born, they're the most intellectual? And then they get into the school system and you see that intellect decline. How is it? And some of y'all will put up the exceptions to the rule. Oh, look at this person graduated 4.0. Listen, go and watch the Rat Utopia experiment. Okay? There were always going to be exceptions to the rule. And those exceptions, they will use them for the benefit of white people, not for black people. So while we applaud and we praise our young people for doing well in school, but as Dr. Amos Wilson said, what good is a 4.0 and you graduate a PhD and doctorate, but you do nothing to improve the condition of your people?
I don't have anything to say to her.
You just condemned all Jews with that observation, with this alliterative kind of Jew bashing that so excites your largely male audiences.
Well, I wonder why. It means that I speak the truth.
There you go.
I speak to the pain and hurt of the masses of black people.
There you go.
I speak that which many of them wish they could say. That's why they cheer and applaud. And I speak that also.
And you see the white dude there shaking his head? But let there be a protest and he be out there in the street calling black people nigger.
Many of them only whisper behind closed doors. I think it is very arrogant to put this on the screen and for you and for others to attempt to tell me, one of the Holocaust victims of the African Holocaust, displaced in the death and decadence of the diaspora of the Western world after having been robbed and raped and murdered, to tell me how to hurt. These are strong words that you put on the screen.
That's right. It's like me being a TI and then trying to tell me that, oh, I should just deal with it and suck it up. No. You're not going to tell me how I should hurt, the pain that I feel, or I shouldn't feel any pain. You're not going to be, you could use the police sirens every time, my bones crack, or every time my headaches come back, or every time my back is hurting, as if that's going to heal the pain. No, that's not going to heal the pain. Okay? Your cursive threats don't heal. right? But what it is a message to me saying that, you know, if you sue us, we're going to put you away, right? That's the extent that they will go through to not be held accountable, to not want to be held accountable. This is what they do. This is white people. And we as black people have adopted that same mindset. Why? Because we don't have any clue of who we are as Africans. We are black on the outside, but our minds are Europeanized.
But you cannot tell the aggrieved and the victim, as I was talking to Brother Malik Zulu Shabazz, the young student warrior from Howard University, and we were going over this. And we said, how do they expect to tell we who have suffered so much how we should speak? When you're hurt, you'll say faggot, you'll say cracker, but you don't want to give me time to say where these terms came from and how they apply to your people here in America.
If it is true that I don't want to give you time to explain the etymology of these words, it is also true that you apparently don't want to respond to my question regarding the loved ones of two Jews who lost their lives to stop the diaspora of the black people.
I don't know.
Do you have any?
I don't know why they were there, and you don't know why they were there. But really? I must say this.
So you're wondering whether they were there for your people?
I'm not wondering at all about them. I'm concerned with the suffering and the pain of the masses of black people. No one wants to pay reparations. The Jews received over $100 billion in reparations and gets $4 billion annually. A Holocaust museum was set up for them on this soil for over $200 million, and they get $21 million annually just for operating expenses. But the Catholic Church, the Pope, the Jews, the Arabs, white people in general, no one wants to pay reparations to these, the sons and daughters of Africa. So I speak to them. I don't speak. I speak to them. I don't speak to the family of those two Jews. There are too many of us for me to speak to them.
That's right. And so again, and let me tell you, the U.S. government got rid of this brother. Okay. And this is after Dr. Khalid Muhammad. They said to themselves, there will never be another black person, black man, black woman, doesn't matter, who's going to speak like this again. And we have not heard any other black person speak like this again. Okay? So, happy birthday to the great, one of our great Christ, Dr. Khalid Muhammad. And as he was speaking, you know, there was another clip that I wanted to play too.
You don't want to take any time to make any particular
We've given all the time we've been in America. Now it's time we do something for ourselves. We are the same people, Phil, that when you beat us and rearrange our eyeballs in the socket and rearrange our face and beat us and stomp us before the world, we're the same people that get up because God just made us with tender and sensitive hearts as his chosen people and say, well, can't we just get along?
70. They used it against other people, but it doesn't work against people in Northeast Africa. Thank you.
Sir, I did it. That's just something beautiful. I can't believe exactly what I'm hearing. We went to war in World War II to fight for the freedom of speech. We didn't fight for freedom of speech of...
No, you did not went to World War II to fight for the freedom of speech. You went to World War II because you joined the army because the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Okay? Because prior to the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor, America couldn't give a damn about the Jews. America didn't care about the Jews. Okay? America was staying out of the war. It was European war. Right? The mistake that happened is that Japan attacked America. If that never happened, Germany would have been in control of Europe. So for them to, when they get up here, it's just how ignorant they are, right? And again, no disrespect to he look like he's a veteran, but let's speak the truth. As Dr. Khalid Muhammad says, the truth. This country is built on lies. It's built on the enslavement of black people. It's built on the rape and pillage of the Native Americans. All right, so let's not pretend. Okay, we are being conditioned to not know the truth.
Hatred. Many of our members, I'm the National Commander of Jewish War Veterans, and over 50,000 of our men died. They're fighting for your right to free speech here now.
He said fighting for
I
your
don't
right.
understand
Yeah,
how you come out with such hatred.
Phil, excuse me, Phil.
Mr. Muhammad. Sir.
You make me sick to my stomach with that. Because
You
at
make
the
me sick
same
also.
time that you were fighting, you were not fighting for the
stand
freedom
up
and
and talk to me.
independence of black people. Soldiers, black soldiers in segregated companies lost their lives on foreign soil there, but would have to come back and
Thank
fight
you.
just to get a
And you see, he is the only one that I've ever heard make that point.
bite to eat and not have to go to the toilet on the side of the road somewhere in the bushes. So you're nothing but hypocrites, and you won't pull that small-time stuff over on me.
He is the only one that made that point. And like I said, when they start throwing out this rhetoric about yeah, we fought for your right for freedom. No. Some of y'all did, yes, but the vast majority did. Okay, because at the same time he's saying that, let's go to this Oregon state government. This is the government website. Okay, and listen what he says here. Other efforts were made to increase opportunity and reduce segregation in the military, but key leaders such as General George C. Marshall feared desegregation would weaken morale, while Secretary of War Henry L. Stimson simply considered African Americans to be inferior. Writing in his diary, leadership is not embedded in the Negro race yet. However, some gains were made with a 1941 policy that African American strength in the Army would reflect its percentage in the population, about 9%, and that African Americans combat a non-combat unit would be formed in every branch of the service, including the formerly all-white Army Air Corps and Marines. Still, the units would remain segregated, and black servicemen suffered widespread discrimination throughout the war. So even when they were fighting, right, they were still being discriminated against on the battlefield. Often regulated to non-combat duties, subjected to racial quotas, and excluded from military career opportunities available to whites. By the summer of 1943, rising African American expectation, triggered in part by a relatively high-paying defense job, collided with growing resentment from the part of many working-class whites to bring about the worst race-wide in the country since the bloody aftermath of World War I. The riots hit communities such as Springfield, Massachusetts, and El Paso, Texas, but the worst violence was in Detroit, Michigan. While the causes were many, much of the friction resulted from chronic overcrowded in housing, transportation, and recreation facilities. For example, most of the African Americans in Detroit were crowded into a 60-block slum. Okay? A 60-block slum. Ironically called Pleasant Valley, where sewage ran in the streets and residents seethed with frustration. Racial fistfights in June triggered 36 hours of mayhem, during which stores were looted and mobs attacked and counterattacked. By the time federal troops restored a shaky peace, 9 whites and 25 African Americans were dead. The specter of race riot continued to worry city police force across the country for the remainder of the war. Right? So white people tend to forget, not saying to forget, but they tend to ignore the reality, the truth, and want to only show us their version, not the true version, their version, which is lies and manipulation. Okay? So it's important that we understand this, that we don't forget this. And the fact that we don't discuss these things with our children is disgusting and shameful. That we're raising our children to not see color when everybody else sees color. Right? We're raising our children to love people that hate them, while others are teaching their children to hate us. And then you want to talk about hate? When I hear black people tell me, oh, you know, you only speak hate and this and that about white people. You know what? I don't speak hate about white people. I speak the truth about white people. Okay? You will never hear me go up there and say, white people are the most filthiest, they're lazy, you know, they just only want to steal from black people and this and that. I don't say that, even though that's part of the truth. But I don't say that. All right? All I do is speak the truth. So they can lie to us. They can lie to you and I. And the person telling you the truth, you want to hate, and you want to say that I'm full of hate. Tell you, my people, my black people. You know? But anyhow, I just wanted to make that cross-reference because, again, you know, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, the only person that I hear made that statement. Okay? On national television. The MSNBCs and the CNN, whenever, you know, January comes around, Martin Luther King and all the stuff, they talk about the civil rights movement and talk about the 2 Jews that lost their lives. But they don't talk about the tens of thousands of black men that lost their lives freeing the very same Jewish people, their ancestors. They laid down their lives for European Jews. Right? Their family lost a husband, a father, a brother, a son, a nephew, an uncle, a cousin. So they didn't make the ultimate sacrifice for their people. They made the ultimate sacrifice for European Jews, who will turn around and discriminate against them also. So I'm sorry, you know, you can't compare that. You cannot compare that. And like I said, you know, what makes us a special people as black people is that we recognize that we have allies amongst other groups of people. Right? And we appreciate that. Okay? And we call it out. But when you are speaking the truth about this system and what it has done to us as black people, this system will seek to destroy you. And it'll use your very own people to do it also. That way, you know, when you're destroyed, they get to sleep peacefully. Right? Because anybody seeking revenge is not going to go to them. They're going to go to the very same people they use. Which, again, the people that look like me. Manipulation, psychological manipulation, is one of the greatest tools white people have and that they invented. I made no mistake about it. They did invent it. Okay? The deception, the manipulation. All right? So again, when I talk about psychological manipulation, you know, you got people who will say, oh, you know, I cannot be manipulated. particularly Negropeans, right? I cannot be manipulated. God is in control of my mind. No one can manipulate my mind. Right? Little do they know. Again, and this is a PDF article from Knowable magazine. It's a special report called Persuasion. Nugent grows up and now has a government job. 10 years after an influential book proposed ways to work with, not against, the irrationalities of human decision-making, practitioners have refined and broadened this gentle tool of persuasion. Every day, 20 Americans die because they need organ transplant and no donor organ is available. More than 100,000 people are now on transplant waiting lists in the United States alone. The public overwhelmingly support organ donation, yet barely half the population has registered as donors. We just never get around to it somehow. No, not that we just never get around to it. It's because their minds, right, their protectionism kicks in. Do you know how many people out there? Again, this is, like I said, I speak the truth. You can Google this stuff. That people who put themselves as transplant donors are more likely to get murdered, right? Are more likely to be end up in an accident, right? Because there are people out there who will do these sort of things just to sell your organs. And again, I'm not saying these things just to say it. It's the reality. These are the things that we as black people tend to ignore. So by not, in the back of our mind, we are saying shit. If I sign this thing and put myself under as a donor, right? Shit, somebody can off me tomorrow and take my organs. Right? So even, like I said, sometimes common sense kicks in, right? And so anyway, let me just continue. So that's not the only place where our action don't match up with our good intention. We promise ourselves that we eat healthier diet and exercise more, yet more than a third of American adults are obese. With a medical price tag approaching $150 billion annually, we know we should be putting money aside for a more comfortable retirement, yet the median American family has saved just $5,000. So often, it seems we need a bit of help to do what we should do. Now, again, whenever I read articles like this, I always pull out the informative part, but I always do a disclaimer. So when they say the median American family, they're talking about white people, right? They're not talking about black people. Okay? Black people, majority of black people are the working class and the working class poor. We can't save our way out of poverty at the rate that we're at, because again, we're not paid a living wage. We are paid a surviving wage. We work and we get paid, and it's just enough for us to survive, to pay our bills, to have a little bit of fun, what have you. And even when you're saving, if you are a saver, how much money do you think you're saving? Remember, the average white family in America has $165,000 in wealth than the average black family. Okay? That is huge. Okay? So that's where nudging comes in. Nudges, tiny changes that have surprisingly large effects on how we act, offer policymakers a way to gently push us forward doing the right thing. Really, you look within the society, and again, this is the best case scenario here, but we know these things are being used in very nefarious ways. Okay, so automatically sign up drivers as organ donors, or enroll employees in the company retirement plan unless they opt out. Put the fruit at eye level and hide the cake and candy somewhere inconspicuous. These nudges work because real world humans don't make decisions like coldly rational Mr. Spock, but like flawed, idiosyncratic Captain Kirk's. Nudges are essentially ways to harness our less than rational behavior to help ourselves or those around us. Really. Make it easier. Make it easy. When persuasion is the goal, a well-tailored nudge can do a lot. Making the desirable behavior convenient is one of the most powerful tools in the nudging repertoire. Okay, so here they give you an example. So you got key food stations, beverages, refrigerators that do not contain bottled water, beverage refrigerators that contain bottled water, basket of bottled water. Phase 1, no nudging. A typical criteria layout makes sweetened drinks easy to find and forces consumers to hunt for a bottled water. All right, so this is the layout. So you have in all of these orange rectangles, this is where you'll find the sweet beverages. Okay, so they're right next to the cashier. They're right now on both sides, and then you have a very large beverage container here, right, for sweet drinks, and then you have the water that's way over here, another bottle of water way over here. Yeah, and look how small these are, right? So most likely you're more likely to pick up a sweetened drink as opposed to a bottle of water, right? So again, how they lay things out is part of the psychological conditioning, right? You see, we just think, spoken words and all this stuff. No, it's also about placement, branding placement. It's about use of colors. What kind of colors being used, how they coordinate with other colors, how they reinforce things that other colors means, or whatever emotions, to reinforce it, to give you a long-term emotional manipulation, right? So this is why you see retail companies, right? They have public relation firms, advertising agencies, right? And it is to condition your mind to buy the products. Phase 2, nudging. In an experiment, simply making it easier to find water increased bottled water purchase by more than 25%. Right? So here's the thing. Even if, and listen, look at the second one, the nudging. There's no sweetened drinks, beverage, nowhere. Right? So you're going to buy water. Right? Now, are you making that choice? Yes. But is that choice also being made for you? Yes, also. But here's the thing, it's water, right? So water, unlike sweetened drinks, we contain all these, chemicals, right? Water is not, right? So it is more healthier to drink water as with your food, right? And again, I'm just saying this because, like I said, I know better, right? I know better. Because we know with these bottles, some of them have toxic chemicals, and that will also find its way into the water, right? Public drinking water, we see how many times people, even kids, are poisoned with lead or poisoned with other, bacteria that's within the water because the pipes are not cleaned, all these different things, right? So again, our health is at the disposal of those in power. All right. So the idea first came to public view a decade ago through the best-selling book Nudge by economist Richard Thaler and legal scholar Cass Sunstein. Nudging profile rose even higher last fall when Thaler of the University of Chicago was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in Economics for introducing irrationality and hence nudging. So they give each other a Nobel Peace Prize for coming up with ways and how to manipulate the public. Okay? Think about that. Into that overwhelmingly rational field, nudges offer gentle, non-coercive. It is not non-coercive. Okay? Just because you leave out the coercive threat part of it does not mean that it's non-coercive. Okay? And coercion does not just mean being threatened. Okay? And best of all, cost-effective ways to guide people towards better choices. But who? Which better choices for who? Right? Because we see how society is moving, and particularly, like I said, as a black person, I got to talk about this and mention this all the time. We see how black people are behaving, particularly younger black people are behaving. Right? Are they making better choices? No. All right, hear the sirens in the background. No, they're not making better choices. And government and other nudge specialists around the world have jumped on the nudging bandwagon. The biggest change is the sheer explosion of initiative from private and public sector alike, says Sunstein of Harvard University. So you see, corporate, private companies, all right, they all engage in psychologically manipulating us. And when those who are in the APA, the American Psychological Association, are in the pockets of corporation, right? Because these are the people who we look to give us, definitions, criteria, in terms of psychology, because they're the one that put out the DSM, right? The Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder, right? And this is what all the psychologists follow. So if corporations are having influence over these people, imagine, what it is that they're doing to us. Okay? At last count, more than 60 government departments and international agencies have established nudging units, tasked with finding and pulling the right behavioral levers to accomplish everything from increasing retirement savings to boosting diversity in military recruits to encouraging people to get vaccinated against flu. The United Kingdom's Behavioral Insight Team, one of the first and largest such unit, has expanded from a handful of people in 2010 to over 100 today. With global reach, clearly nudging has moved into the mainstream. Well, it has been in the mainstream. And again, this is not nothing new. They redefine their psychological methods and tactics and experimentation, give them new words, okay, to sanitize it, to make it acceptable for you and I. Not to manipulate you and I into accepting these things. All right, so I just want to read this, because again, for those of us who like to say, "Oh, no one can control our mind. There's only God and this and that." Well, listen, I got news for you. Okay, they've been able to control your mind for quite a long time. All right, and when I say quite a long time, I do mean quite a long time. Now, you guys hear me talk about the book called The Golden Stool. Okay? So I want to just show you guys exactly this book, right? So this is the PDF version of it. The Golden Stool. And particularly this section, right? how are Africans governed? Wherein the question are asked, how are the Africans governed? How should they be governed? On returning to Africa in 1898, I spent the greater part of the first 12 months as the guest and pupil of missionaries of the Paris Evangelical Society in Busutuland, the Switzerland of South Africa. The greatest figure in the history of that little country, it is about half as large again as Wales, is that the Moshe, the chief who, out of the chaos that reigned in South Africa, subsequent to the rise of the Zulu power under Shaka, gathered around him numerous Bantu clans and willed them into a nation. It was he who in 1833 invited the French missionaries to settle in his country. With remarkable prescience, he foresaw that the tide of European civilization, which at that time was rising in South Africa, would ultimately beat around his frontier. And he expected, not vainly, that the presence of the missionary would not only elevate his people, but would help them to retain possession of their land. Moreover, so again, here you have someone leadership with good intent. He appealed again and again to be taken under British protection. When at last in 1868, his prayer was granted. This was only just the time to save the remainder of his territory from the Boers, who had already taken possession of a large part of it. In 1862, Moshe used what Sir Godfrey Lagan rightly calls remarkable words in his appeal to the British authorities. So can you imagine what this leader was going through? Okay. That he had to sign a treaty because of what the Boers are the Belgians, right? Those from the Netherlands. All right. They were destroying his nation, destroying the land, carving up the land, right? Slaughtering people. Okay, and you guys can read this, but I want to get to a particular part here. Let me see if I can find it here. And I just decided to just do this right, but I should have bookmarked the page, right? Oh, here it is. There we go. Okay, so when Europeans took possession of African territories, the problem arose as to the best method of governing the people. Various methods have been tried, but they may be reduced in principle to two, which have been described in the following terms by Mr. Emery, the Secretary of State for the colonies. The first method begins by destroying the institutions, tradition, and habits of the people, and then superimposes upon the ruins whatever the governing power considered to be a better administrative system. Now, if you ever heard about the Kingdom of Benin, when they had the Great Wall of Benin, they destroyed that. This wall was bigger, longer than the Great Wall of China. So everywhere that in Africa where black people built things, they destroyed it and said black people never built anything. Right? Now I want you to understand that. Okay? The other method, while checking the worst abuse, tried to graft our higher civilization on this soundly rooted native stock, bringing out the best of what it is in the native tradition and molding it into a form consonant with modern ideas and higher standards, and yet all the time enlisting on our side the real force of the spirit of the people. Okay? So for all you Negropeans talk about, you feel the spirit, or you feel in your spirit, this is not your spirit. It is a white man's spirit. Okay? And I say a white man, not a white woman, because for most part, white women didn't play a significant role in going to Africa and enslaving black people. That was white men. But the white woman who would later be used as a tool to inject their spirit into black women is during the second wave feminism. Right? With, what's her name? Gloria Steinem. So today, a lot of our women have the white European woman's spirit. The latter of these two methods, commonly known as, and this is important here, because they continue to do this today, as indirect rule. It is the method adopted in Basutoland. It is also applied in Uganda, Nigeria, partly at least, and other British territory. An extreme example of the other method, direct rule, is afforded by the system established by the Germans in their East and West African territories. In the Cameroons, they deliberately broke down as far as possible all the native machinery of government. They nullify the powers of the chief and set up European officials who were ignorant of the local language, unversed in native law and custom, and all too few in numbers to cope with the work of governing, right? Through significant and powerful, though significant and powerful enough to break down the native system and to what? To dishearten the true leaders of the people. Since the British took over part of German colonies under a mandate of the League of Nations, they call themselves the League of Nations, right? They have made strenuous and largely successful endeavor to resuscitate the indigenous form of government. The British official now acts as advisors to the native authorities, educating and controlling them, keeping their fingers on the pulse of native life, and guiding the people along with their own channels into a path of progress. And we see what they call progress. The degree of success attainable by indirect rule and the extent to which it can be applied depend largely upon the character of the pre-existing native government, where, as in Basutoland, northern Nigeria, Uganda, the system was highly organized under strong chiefs. The foundation was already laid. But in other districts where small headmen ruled village communities and paid no allegiance to a superior chief, the establishment of indirect rule is a much more difficult task. In this case, it is the aim of the British authority to draw scattered units together under one head, or to form native council to which a large measure of self-government may be entrusted. So what they did is that they took all these different nations, right, put them together, right, and gave them a name. So you are now under this one nation called such and such. Okay? Because it was difficult for them to apply indirect rule to every nation within that area. All right? So a lot of Africans lost their identity to be put on this new identity and take on the identity of the bigger groups. Right? So when I talk about indirect rule, this is what I'm talking about. This will happen today. A lot of our leaders, they're put out there to say, well, This is a black leader, but they are being controlled from behind. Right? They are being controlled from behind. So just want, and I talk about this stuff all the time, but, just want to let you guys see and understand what's going on. And this is going to segue into the black church. Okay? Because the black church are being controlled. And it's by indirect rule. Right? The church and financial trauma in the black community. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and I want to be sensitive to the fact that emotions can flare as a result, or perceived challenges to the faith and belief people may have as we explore this topic. The church has been a source of financial trauma in the black community since slavery, and continue to perpetuate those traumas today. When we sit and examine one of the most common money beliefs in the black community, that money is the root of all evil, we can put on a thread that only begins to unravel upon layers of coercion and abuse that many often overlook, giving the glory to God, specifically related to money. As I said, the word money, one thing you cannot do, and I've shown you this over and over again, is that you cannot use money to manipulate me. You cannot use money to try to get me to be a gatekeeper, right? The moment that you try to use money and I say, okay, fine, give me the money, but I'm going to help my people out. And you said, no, we're not going to give you the money. Because the only how, actually, if and when I get that money, I'm helping my people out. But that's not what they want. They want me to be selfish, individualistic, only help myself, and that's it. This is how we're conditioned. No, thank you. All right, so a distinction from the practice of Christianity has been weaponized to promote financial complacency and a willful surrendering of riches through tithing. It's no secret that the Bible was used to justify American child slavery by Christian slave owners across the United States and the Caribbean. Enslaved Africans would carry and disguise their spiritual tradition within the practice of Christianity, because while most slaves were not permitted to actually read the Bible or read at all, they were allowed to worship in the faith of their owners. With time, however, traditions, language, and culture were in many ways forgotten, lost, or pieced together into something familiar but not quite the same as the original. Christianity became the accepted faith, whether through fear, compliance, or the lack of knowledge of any alternative. The church's representation of hope. Some of the core tenets of Christianity emphasize a belief in the afterlife, where either you are rewarded for your deeds and demonstrations of faith in heaven, or you are punished and tormented for eternity in the fires of hell. While this concept of judgment and the afterlife is not uniquely Christian, it does speak to an attitude of submission to suffer and fate, with delayed gratification of enjoying riches, health, and even freedom in an afterlife. Although the institution of slavery have been abolished on paper, there is still an undercurrent of this delayed gratification that has spilled out into a contemporary black experience. Popular idioms such as Jesus take the wheel, God got it, and look at God. Like, look at God. Like, I'm telling you, this shit is so funny, and people say that, look at God. Like, the Bible tell you that if you look at God, you will die, right? But the Bible also tell you that there are those that have seen the face of God and live. Contradictions. are echoed of the spiritual and emotional disassociation from the trauma of abuse endured through generations. This blind faith in the idea that although I'm suffering now, I will be rewarded for my commitment to God in the afterlife was not only necessary for survival at the hands of unquestionable atrocities, but continue to act as a beacon in times of uncertainty, fear, pain, and more. Financial values and the church. In my training to become an accredited financial counselor, one of the questions we famously spend time exploring is around client values versus financial goal relating to tithing. The question loosely reads, if you have a client who is having trouble meeting their financial goal around budgeting or saving, but you notice they are committed to tithing, how do you advise them? Intuitively, you may say, well, it's common sense for them to decrease or stop tithing entirely while they get their finance in order. However, the right answer is to focus on helping the client to align their value, in this case religious tithing, to their goals, budgeting, saving, paying down debt, etc. The job of the counselor in this case isn't to tell the client what to do, but to help the client see how their decision clashes with their goals and create an environment where they feel comfortable making a change. Although this is a hypothetical scenario, it is rooted in realism. Okay? I have heard personal accounts of people, as I said, personal accounts of people who would tithe despite not being able to pay their electric bill, or who didn't have enough money for groceries. What's worse is that despite the financial suffering one might be experiencing, the existence of mega church and high income pastors introduce a paradox in that members of the congregation have to delay their riches to the afterlife, but the religious leaders get to enjoy his riches now, a dynamic that is eerily similar to that of a not so distant past rooted in slavery. So I'm going to end it there. You guys can read the rest of this. This is called, again, The Church and Financial Trauma in the Black Community. Okay. Just Google the title and you will find the article. All right. All right. I know it's a lot to go. So a lot I'm doing right now. Let's see. And I'm hour and a half in. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, last night I was at the doctor's office. I was having a conversation with his aide or what have you, right? His assistant. That's what I need to say. His assistant. Then we talk about God and this and that. And she said, I said to her, I said, God is evil. And she said, God is not evil, not my God. And I said to her, well, I'm not just saying that because I think God is evil. I'm saying it because that's what's in the Bible. All right. And I started quoting from the Bible, right? God said he creates the light and the darkness. Hold up. Okay. All right. So if you go, and I'm going to read from the King James Version. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you guys. Let me just put that here. So again, it's in your Bible. All right. And again, the only person in the Bible that God says that you hear, that you, when you read it, God is speaking, right? Not somebody that's speaking for God or anything like that. Not third person, second person. This is first person. This is God speaking, right? So Isaiah 45, this is King James Version. Thus said the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the lions of kings, to open before him the two levy gates, and the gates shall not be shut. Okay? I will go before thee and make the crooked place straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut the sunder of bars of iron. And I will give thee the treasures of darkness, the hidden riches of secret places, that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which called thee by thy name, am the God of Israel. Okay? So let's go where he says, where you hear God saying that, hey, I create the light and the darkness. Let me see. Where is it again? Jeremiah 7. All right, here we go. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So when Christians say that God is good all the time, right, that's not true. God is not good all the time. When Christians say God is not evil, that's not true. God says he creates evil. In order for you to create evil, you have to have evil within you. Because you are God, right? So again, like I said, things, particularly for the Negropean Christians, they're all about what sounds good. What makes them high when they're in church and they're dancing and they're clapping and they get on their high. You get those, they start speaking in tongues and all this stuff. It's all tradition. This is not no Holy Spirit. It's not the power of God. Right? This is their ancestral, programming. Okay? So an interesting book to get is called 101 Contradiction of the Bible. Where was that here? I do have that book. I have my Kindle, I think. Okay, let's see here. All right. So just Google this. Google it. You can download it. All right. 101 Contradiction of the Bible. And then you can go look for yourself. Okay? So when people say the Bible is the Word of God, it is perfect in all ways and it is infallible, you hit them with the dose of reality, okay? And all of a sudden, they have nothing to say. Or they'll say, well, the Bible is written by man. Yeah, but you just said the Bible is the Word of God. When Christians do that, they never are aware of what it is that they're doing. And I've noticed this. Because again, that's the subconscious programming. It's like I was saying to the doctor's assistant, I said, let me ask you a question. In the Bible, it says that, Cain and Adam and Eve, right? And then they had two sons named Cain and Abel. One of the sons died, or Cain killed his brother, and God asked Cain, where is Abel? But if God is all-seeing and all-knowing, why does he have to ask Cain where his brother is? And then why all of a sudden there's this delay of now hearing Cain cry out and his blood is in the soil, right? It shows you that your God is always late, right? Just as with Sodom and Gomorrah. God has to hear what was happening in Sodom and Gomorrah, and then he has to go down there for himself to see. Right? So when they say God is all seeing, all knowing, how is that possible then? Then God should have already seen this. He should already know what was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. Like I said, it's in your Bible. I'm not saying this just because I'm making this shit up. It's in your Bible. It is there in your Bible. So you have all these contradictions that Christians don't want to deal with, right? Because again, the cognitive dissonance will kick in, and their programming kicks in, and it's either to their brain shut down, and they walk away. Okay. So let me give you another contradiction, right? This is 2 Chronicles 36:9, King James Version. Now, I can't even pronounce this word here, but Jehoshaphat was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem, and he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord. All right, now let's go to 2 Kings. Jehoshaphat was 18 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 3 months. His mother's name was Nehushta, daughter of Elnathan. She was from Jerusalem. Okay. So here you have two different contradictions, right, in the Bible. So they'll say, well, that's a different king. No, it's not. No, it's not. But this is what Christians would do. So anyway, as I was saying with the whole Cain and Abel thing. So then after Cain killed his brother and was cast out by God, he went to the land of Noah, in which he found a wife. Right? So then, both his sisters was like, yeah, because there were other people there. I said, well, why didn't they mention those other people in the Bible? Right? And so why make you believe that there was only Adam and Eve and their 2 sons? Right? While there were other people in the world. How come the Bible doesn't account for those other people? Right? But they will find ways to make up shit in their mind, right, to try to justify the contradiction, the lies. Okay? So I just wanted to speak on this because, too many times I keep saying they send these religious fanatics to try to convert me, try to invite me to church. I'm not interested. Okay? I know the truth. And once you know the truth, you can never go back to believing in the lies. You can't. I'll be a fool to do so. It doesn't matter if you promise me money or not. I'm not going to do it. It doesn't matter if you threaten to take my disability. I'm still not going to do it. Why don't you get that? But again, that's the mindset of religious people. They will either convert you, and they'll try to do it in many different ways. They will poison you. They'll destroy your career. They will destroy your relationships. Right? Meanwhile, their relationships are being destroyed. Their careers are being destroyed also by other Christians. Okay? Also. I really can't with these people. But again, this is what I do. And I'm always inspired whenever they attack me in such a way. And they inspire me to keep speaking more of the truth. All right? So with that being said, I'll talk to you guys on the next Targeted Individual program, Targeted Experience.